All right, this is Pre-Algebra lesson 1.8. All right. Looking for a pattern on page 40. All right. In our text, in our book here, once every chapter, they have a lesson that is dedicated to story problems. Okay? In this chapter, it's lesson 1.8. We're looking for a pattern. In other chapters, it might be drawing a picture, or it might be try, check, revise, or something. Right now, we're talking about looking for a pattern. Here's the deal. This is the deal with this. Let's read the question and let's figure out how they want us to solve this. Here's the thing. Story problems can be solved in lots of different ways. Okay, story problems can be usually solved in lots of different ways. Nobody really cares how you get the problem solved as long as you get it solved. Things that make it so that you can solve a story problem is, one, you have to read the question lots of times so that you get to the point where you fully understand what they're asking you for. Anytime you have a story problem, you've got to understand what it is that they're asking you for. And then you got to be able to picture in your head where, you got to be able to put together what is this whole scene, what is going on, and then you have to be able to lay out the problem, and then you actually have to solve the problem. So there's lots of steps. It's why story problems are every student's bane. What's somebody's bane? Right, one thing they hate. What would be Superman's bane? What was Superman's bane? Kryptonite, right? That was Superman's bane. And so, here's the deal. Let's look at this. Let's read. We're in the middle of page 40 here. It says, example 1, information. Are you all with me here on page 40 in the middle? News spreads quickly at Riverdale High. Okay, news spreads quickly at Riverdale High. Each student who hears a story repeats it 15 minutes later to 2 students who have not yet heard it, and then tells no one. Okay, so each student that hears some news, 15 minutes later goes and tells 2 people, and then stops telling people. Okay, and then those 2 people, what do? 15 minutes later, they go tell 2 people, and then they stop telling, right? And then those 4 people go out and tell. Does that make sense? Okay. It says, suppose one student hears some news at 8 a.m. One student hears news at 8. How many students will know the news at 9? So, here's the thing that they suggest that you do, that you read and understand. How many students does each student tell? How many students does each student tell that hears it? 2, right? Each student tells 2. How long does it take the news to reach the second and third students? How long before they, you know what I mean? Like, how long did it take that one person to tell those 2 people? 15 minutes, right? So it took 15 minutes for that person to tell 2 people. Okay? Now, it says here, to make a table, to organize the numbers, and then you look for a pattern. What's a table? Does anybody know what they're talking about, making a table? A table is this. This is not my neatest work, but it'll work. That's a table. Okay? Here's what they're saying. They're saying now it says how many new students will hear the news at 8:15. So remember, what time did the first person hear the news? What time? 8. How many people heard it at 8? Just 1. How many people will know the news? It says here, how many new students will hear the news at 8:15? How many new students will hear the news at 8:15? 2, right? Because the one person tells 2. How many 15-minute periods are there between 8 and 9 a.m.? How many 15-minute periods are there between 8 and 9, Kyla? No. How many 15-minute periods? There are 4. There are 4 15-minute chunks. Okay? So then here's the deal. Let's make our table, okay? Let's do this. At 8 a.m., at 8, how many, this is the deal, it says the number of new students who hear, and this is the total students who know. Okay, at 8 o'clock, who hears the news? How many people? 1. At 8 o'clock, how many people know the news? 1. Okay, at 8:15, how many new students hear the news? 2. How many now, at 8:15, how many total students know the news? 3. At 8:30, how many new students will hear the news? 4. And how many total students know now? 7. Do you see what I'm talking about here? At 8:45, how many new students hear the news? 8. How many total students now know the news? At 9, how many new students hear the news? How many now total? 31, right? So at 9 o'clock, how many students know the news at Riverdale High? 31. It's right here. Does that make sense? If I was to ask you at 9:15, how many total students know the news at 9:15? Do the math. How many total students know the news at 9:15? How many total students? Do the math right now. Total students, Jade?
63.
It is 63. How did you get that? How many new students are there at 9:15 that know the news?
31. Oh, wait, 63.
How many total new students at 9:15? New students know the news?
32.
32.
Oh.
And then you add these two. Do you notice that each one of these is you add these two to make that. You add these two to make that. You add these two to make that. Do you see what I'm talking about? And there, so there's that. Okay, so then that makes this 63. Another way of doing this, you don't have to make a table. You could actually draw a tree diagram. You could say, okay, at 8 o'clock, how many students knew? 1. At 8:15, how many students know? At 8:15 total, how many students know? 3. At 8:30, each one of those guys tell 2. How many new people know at 8:30? 4. How many total people know? What can you do? You just count the lines, right? You see what I'm talking about here? At 8:45, you see how this is working too? You see how this would work too? What's the problem with drawing a tree diagram? What if I was to ask you, okay, at 10:30, how many students will know?
Oh my gosh.
You see what's the problem with a tree diagram? It gets too, like, it becomes too big, right? I mean, all of a sudden there's too much to write in too little a space. Where if we were to do it on a table, could I do it till 10:30 pretty easily? Pretty easily, right? So, but there's more than one way of doing it. I'm showing you this so that you can see that there's more than one way of doing it. They're both just as good. It just sometimes you have to decide, wait a second, this isn't going to work. This is going to get too huge. I need to figure out another way of doing it. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's the deal. I'm going to do this. This is how these things work. Every time we have one of these, I let you guys work in pairs. Oh, except I get to choose. See, that's this thing. You work in pairs. You'll work together, and it's just you do on one piece of paper. The two of you do it on one piece of paper. There are 7 of you, which means that one group can have 3. Does that make sense? One group can have 3. There'll be 2 groups of 2 and 1 group of 3. And, you know, I'm here to help you if you need it. But for the most part, I'm really looking for you guys to work this out on your own, right? I'm looking for you to really, I don't want to spoon feed you. What does that mean to be spoon fed?
Like give you the answers.
Right. Well, what are they implying there? That you're a baby, right? That you're here you go. You guys are now 11 and 12 years old. Like, here you go. Here, let me help you. Eat this, like these are questions that you should be able to figure out, especially if there's 2 of you or 3 of you, okay? I can help you, but it would only be after you've given it a good 5 or 10 minute go, okay? Anyway, here's your assignment. It is to do page 42 to 43. One through 7 all. Okay, 1 through 7 all. Now here's the deal. Did you know in the back of the book, what do they have back there? A lot of times they have the odd answers back there. They do. If I give you all, I'm expecting you to go back in the back of the book and see if you got them right. Does that make sense? I'm expecting you to. I am not wanting you to go to the back of the book to just go get the answer. That's a total waste of your time, right? But you should do the questions, and then when you're done with the odd ones, you go to the back of the book and you see if you're right. Does that make sense? If you're wrong, you can go back and fix it, try and figure out what you did wrong, etc. Tomorrow, when we correct this in class, what numbers do you think I'm going to correct?
No. Even.
2, 4, 6. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
1 through 7 is still the assignment. So anyway, there we go.